All right, it's 5 o'clock, so we'll call this meeting of September 8, 2020 to order. It's still gonna be a little bit different tonight. Councilmember Polite is gonna be on WebEx, we hope, right, Melissa?
Yes, sir.
I think they're trying to make contact with him. He had some sickness and he didn't want to be here. Councilmember Aycock also has some sickness and he won't be here tonight. And Councilmember Broadway had a death in his family and he won't be here tonight. So we'll be limping a little bit. But Melissa, if you let me know when you can get the WebEx going.
The WebEx is on, so hopefully,
Tosh, can you hear us or will we be able to hear him?
Yes, I hear you. Can you hear me?
It's kind of choppy.
Could you hear him?
he's on, but he's a little muffled.
Okay. All right. The first thing.
Can you hear me better now?
Huh?
Yes, could you hear him better now?
Can you hear him?
Okay, yes, sir. I can hear y'all loud and clear.
Turn up the volume.
Make sure he can hear us.
Hey, can we cut the volume up a little bit?
He said he could hear y'all loud and clear.
Yeah, but we can't hear him. So the question is, can we cut the volume up on our end?
We're trying to.
The first thing we got to do is the approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. Agenda passes, carries, whatever. 2020 street resourcing discussion.
Yep, Marty, come on in and give an update from the last meeting discussion.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. The difference between the list you got in your packet, there is one more street on here that didn't get added to the list you have, and that's Walnut Street between John and William. The city manager had recommended us putting that on there, but this list had already gone out, so. And the two streets that Councilwoman Matthews asked me to look at, I did, and I added those to it. Those are in orange on here. And I was asked about Holly Street. That has been paved all the way from one end to Madison to the dead end. Can't remember that apartment complex there. It's been paved all the way from there all the way to the Madison tank. So I did drive down it to make sure I got both ends of it. I just need to know if, well, you can see we're estimating a $1.8 million here, so keep your fingers crossed our bids come in right at the $1.5 million.
Before you leave, Councilwoman Matthews, I don't recall the street that's in your district. I don't know if you remember it, that some constituents were saying needed to be paved.
It was Heart Circle. I added it.
Okay.
Heart Circle.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we did.
Thank you.
We did add that one to it. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
And we did add Graham Street too, from John Street to Winslow.
Thank you.
What is the, so you're saying the budget's 1.8 million, or you're estimating 1.8 million? What do we have in our budget?
1.5.
So if we're short, we're gonna have to figure out what to cut out, I guess?
Either what to cut out or
Or either add to? Where do you give it?
adding money to it.
Okay.
One of the two.
Anybody have any problems with this? No. All right.
No, good.
And when
Thank-
is this gonna go out to bid?
I'm hoping to have this out late this month or early next month.
And when do you think they're gonna do it?
I figure it'll start sometime after the first of the year, by the time we award, get contracts signed, and that'll be a good time to start anyway, because that'll be past the winter months where the asphalt plants shut down. And the street paving project started today, so the contractor's out on site for the 4 dirt streets.
Dirt street, okay.
Yep. Yep.
Anybody got any more questions? Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Have you gotten any place on bids for the drain line
Not yet. I have to put that together. I'll have to put that project together as soon as I get an engineer on board. And we're in the process of hiring the engineer as well as a construction inspector. But I'll get it fast as I can. Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. All right, next we got the Union Station benchmark.
Yes, sir. We should have a dial-in presentation from Jason Epley and Gene Reese. And I believe Scott Satterfield is on the line as well. Gentlemen out there?
Yep. Yeah. Jason Epley here. Is there a way to share my screen?
1 second, Jason.
Okay. I'll make it go quicker.
Are we trying to enable him to share the screen?
Uh-huh. I don't know if it'll let me. Let's see.
Okay. How did that work?
There we go, Jason. You're up.
All right, great. I really appreciate the opportunity to be speaking with you tonight. Also, part of my team is Gene Reese, who's a developer in Mount Airy. Gene is on the phone to answer any questions that we have at the end. And Scott's on the phone as well, that may be able to answer any questions from the staff perspective. Normally, this is a 45-minute presentation, so I'm going to try to cut this to 10 minutes. So here we go. I know you've got this in your packet, but I've updated it slightly. The overall project objectives included preservation of Union Station because of its historic significance and the ability to stabilize the structure. And, Gene and I share your passion as a city to be involved in historic preservation, and we think this is a great opportunity for this building to be preserved well into the future. We also wanted to look at how to integrate passenger rail options in the future, market-based reuse options, what are some of the financial tools and options available to the city, public-private partnerships. We feel this is very important to see this project become a success, and then also development strategies for the surrounding neighborhood as well. As part of the process, we interviewed well over 80 people last year from June 8th to the 10th. Also on July 2nd, you can see the list of folks that we interviewed. We tried to cover all of our bases, meeting with a lot of different community supporters, experts in various areas, met with some of you elected officials. We also met with some state officials as well, NCDOT, public schools. So we really tried to cover our bases to get input from as many people in the community as we could. Some of the ideas that came out of those meetings, you see the range of ideas here on the screen, which included restaurant, event space, museum, library, art studio, entrepreneurial incubator space, even a fitness opportunity downtown. A lot of folks also mentioned the growing catering and mobile food industry in the area, and culinary and hospitality education and training. So a whole range of ideas that we heard during the interviews. So we coupled that with the background research that we completed as part of the project, and these were the primary scenarios that we looked at a little bit closer that I'll go over tonight with you. The building is approximately 12,600 gross square feet. You've probably heard different numbers, but that's the gross number. On the first floor, which would include the south, main, and north wing, you're looking at just around 8,000 square feet. And the second floor, which is mostly unfinished, is a little bit over 4,500 square feet. Scenario A really took an approach of what does it cost, what will it take just to stabilize the structure. We did meet with the State Historic Preservation Office, and an architect was on our team, Dunn & Dalton. And the actions that really need to take place to stabilize the building include a new roof on the north and south wings. As many of you know, the main roof was replaced with the terracotta tile and restored, but the wings on the north and south, there's some structural issues that are impeding putting back clay tile there. New roof for the passenger canopy, and you can see that on the screen. A new floor in the south wing that has caved in. And there's also some rainwater that needs to be redirected from the building. And finally, one of the things we discussed with the State Historic Preservation Office was, the difference between preservation versus restoration. And we discussed at length, a preservation approach would focus on maintenance and repair of the existing historic materials versus a full restoration, taking it back to a particular period of time, which would be much more costly to take that approach. But both approaches would qualify for state historic preservation tax credits. So all the scenarios that I'm going to go over quickly with you include this basic layout where the south wing, if you recall, we met with NCDOT and they would like to see a portion of the building remain available to be converted in the future when future rail were to come back to Goldsboro. So that every scenario that you see is going to show the south wing as that space that could be converted back to passenger rail service. Basically, it would be a waiting room, ticketing, maybe some refreshments, that kind of thing, and restrooms. So all scenarios have that. Flipping ahead to scenario B. I'm not going to spend a lot of time. You can imagine what this would look like. The upper floor with office space. The main terminal area would be a common area for training, meetings, small office events, things like that. But the idea here would be offices would be throughout the building. These could be leased. Scenario C that we looked at was a destination restaurant. We looked at some other train stations, such as in Salisbury. We've actually enclosed part of the passage, as you see here in the orange, where we've proposed a glass connector. This main terminal area would become the seating area for the restaurant. The north wing would become the kitchen, and then the upstairs could become leasable office space or some other support for the restaurant. Scenario D, we recognize and we heard loud and clear during the interviews that there's a lot of event space in Goldsboro, but we also heard there was a need for some unique event spaces, and that's why this became one of the options. And you see here, not a big surprise, the first floor terminal would be the main area for weddings and parties and that sort of thing. Upstairs could be, once again, could be leasable office space or could become dressing rooms or associated with the event venue. And then the kitchen, the north wing, south wing, you are familiar with that. E.1, entrepreneurial space. This would look at the building for traditional incubator space. Growing businesses that needed a place that could not, maybe can't afford rent somewhere else in the city. Here's an example of what some of those spaces look like around the country. Basically it gives opportunity for entrepreneurs to share ideas and to share equipment and grow their business. E.2 also looked at entrepreneurial uses, but more focused on culinary and hospitality-focused space. And this would be open to the community. It would include a commercial kitchen. It could be a training program that's a spinoff with the community college, etc. And this gives the community an opportunity. Maybe they've got grandma's favorite cookies that they would like to start selling and marketing. This commercial kitchen space would give them the opportunity to do that. As far as the training goes, you may or may not be familiar with the Rocky Mount Brew Mill, but what's going on there with their partnership with the community college, you can actually receive a degree. I can't remember the name of it. I believe it's in brewing or brewmaster, something like that. They didn't have those cool degrees when I was going through school. But there will certainly be an opportunity if this became a culinary training for someone to come, train there, be able to have a space to sell and try out their skills. Scenario 3 continues with the entrepreneurial theme, and this would be the market hall and office concept. And some of you may have been to indoor market halls. Some can be done really well, where you have spaces that folks could rent out to sell various retail products and things that they're working on. Sorry I'm going so fast, but I know we got a time limit. Cultural and civic space. One of the ideas was how could this facility be utilized as a museum, a library, a school, or perhaps a YMCA. In this scenario, just envision how the different spaces could be utilized for that use. Then we also looked at community grocery options, where this would serve the needs of downtown residents and folks that live around the station. There'd be a small grocery, could be a co-op, farmer's market type situation that could occupy the building and provide a service to people living in and around downtown. And here's just some pictures showing us various community food co-ops from across the country. So one of the interesting things we thought about as we looked at the building and looked at the land around the building was how can you expand the footprint? There's a significant opportunity with the covered porticos and walkways and the green space. The green space can be used for outdoor dining, which we all know with COVID-19, outdoor dining is going to be something that's going to be important for a while. Here are some options. This is from South Carolina Freight Yard, where they actually combine this outdoor type activities for families, because we heard that throughout the interviews. How can we have fun family activities? And this is a great example of that, just to our neighbor to the south in South Carolina. Another thing we looked at was the potential use of rail cars. That gives an opportunity to tie some history back to the station, but also expand the footprint. As restaurants, if the culinary option became something that a developer looked at, someone could open a restaurant, they could grow their business and have this on site in a train car, box car on site, or it could become office use for training. This particular example at the top and to the right is from a recent rail car conversion in Myrtle Beach at their train station that they use for an expansion for meeting space. And then also in Santa Fe, a much bigger community, but still a good concept that could come back and be relevant to Goldsboro with having market space next to the rail. So getting down to the nuts and bolts, how much does all this cost? The basic building stabilization, is around $800,000 to $1 million. And you see all of the things that we correct from the slides I presented earlier. And then scenarios that do not involve a commercial kitchen, which would be B, D, E.1, E3, and F, and also G. After looking at these, the architect, made all these assumptions, looking at the upfit, considering preservation, not restoration, and developed a $5.6 million estimate. And during our Q&A, Gene, as a developer, had some lower estimate, what he felt like would be more in line, which would be much lower than this, but this was the architect's estimate. And then the estimates that had a commercial kitchen component, those came in around $6.6 million. So, partnerships and strategies, as I mentioned, all of this is going to involve a commitment, from the city to some extent, but also from the private sector to fill the gap. The three primary approaches that we looked at were A, where the city develops and maintains ownership. Option B, where the city develops and sells portions of the building. And C, where the city would offer Union Station and property for sale. Under A, the city would need to budget and secure funding to develop Union Station in its entirety. This would include the building stabilization, upfit, etc. The city, could utilize part of this building to meet its needs, or could lease the space to various private sector entities in the community. And then ultimately, the city would be able to maintain control of the south wing for future rail service. Option B could be some sort of combination, potentially, of condominium ownership with the private sector, where the city maintains some ownership, maybe condominiumizes some of the other portions of the building. The city would then need to monitor upfits throughout the building to ensure it stays in keeping with the historic character. And in this scenario, the city would maintain control of the south wing for future rail service. Option C, where the city would sell the building and property. This would, private developer would purchase the building. It provides for the greatest use of state and federal tax credits under this scenario. One caveat, the city would need to ensure through contractual arrangements that it would maintain easements and rights of way when the rail would come back to Goldsboro, so that the station, part of it, could be used for future rail service. Financing strategies. It looks like I'm running short on time here, so I'll go a little bit faster. But basically, these are all the different layers of financing strategies that we've considered as part of the project. The surrounding area, it's a strong connection, obviously, down West Walnut Street to downtown. There's a lot of opportunities to explore reuse of some of the historic structures in and around the site. Looking at the zoning for the intervening blocks between downtown and the station, and looking at some potential alternative uses for some of the larger homes. One of the options that's becoming a trend is the assisted living, taking these historic structures that are really large, for a single family, and looking at ways that it could be potentially converted for assisted living. And you're probably familiar with office and commercial uses. And here are just some examples of some of those renovations. And finally, spin-off development to support nearby adjacent properties. And we talked a little bit about that in the previous slide, potential for townhomes, condos. That's something we did hear quite a bit during the interviews, was the opportunity or the need for townhomes and condos in the market. And there's some areas that could be used for potential parking expansion. But I think one thing I wanted to make note of is, if you really focus on one block at a time, it'll make a huge difference. A lot of cities take a shotgun approach and, really focus on a house on one street and then another street. And if you really focus on the block, you can make a bigger impact more quickly. And here are some of the properties that we just identified that could fulfill some of those needs on the previous slide. And once again, that strong connection to all the great things happening downtown could really help strengthen having a significant destination use, where Union Station is located, also with downtown. Just feel like there's a great opportunity there. So the next steps, building stabilization, and if just not able to do that at this moment, at least continue to do regular inspections until it is stabilized. I know Scott and the downtown office have been working hard with developers to look at option A, B, and C, and I hope to see great things come out of that. And then also a plan for the redevelopment of the neighborhood to really take advantage of the potential reuse of Union Station. And I went a little bit longer than 10 minutes, so thank you for the time. Be happy to answer questions.
Anybody got any questions? I don't believe we have any right now. I'm sure there'll be some forthcoming.
Okay, great. Be happy to answer those.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
New Business CARES Act Coronavirus Fund.
Yes, sir. I asked the assistant to the city manager, Octavius Murphy, to coordinate staff efforts to fund the coronavirus relief fund spending. We had to submit that by 1st of September through the county to North Carolina Pandemic Recovery Office. I confirmed that the council can modify this submission as appropriate, but Wayne County would like us to spend the money by November 20th, and the final deadline for completion of spending is December 31st. The staff spread the funding to address citizen and city concerns that are in accordance with the guidelines for COVID-related expenses. I forwarded you on Friday the Coronavirus Relief Fund resolution that I'd like council to approve this evening so we can begin spending the funds in accordance with council direction. I'm going to have Octavius go through some slides here to talk about where we thought would be best to put this funding to use.
Thank you, Tim. Good evening, Mayor, City Council, staff. Tonight we're going to talk about the Coronavirus Relief Fund. We're going to look at the impact to the state of North Carolina with respect to Wayne County and the city of Goldsboro. As you know, $4 billion has been presented to the state of North Carolina. The North Carolina Assembly has allocated $300 million to counties and requires counties to pass at least 25% of those funding to municipalities. Wayne County has received $4.6 million and has allocated $967,000 to the city of Goldsboro. The North Carolina Pro Office serves as the overseer and coordinates funds throughout this period. The office also provides technical assistance and ensures coordination of federal funds. One of their primary responsibilities is to make sure that each municipality and county is accountable for their spending. Specifically, the city CRF plan, as Tim mentioned earlier, was due on September 1. The city is considered a subrecipient, and the county, 100 counties throughout the state of North Carolina, are considered the recipients. So we report to Wayne County. It's also very important to understand that from a municipality standpoint, it's our responsibility to keep adequate documentation of expenses. If we choose to estimate or forecast expenditures, we have to be accurate with those expenditures. If not, we're subject to being out of compliance with NC Pro Office. The CARES Act does have constraints. These funds may only be used to cover costs that are associated with necessary expenditures, expenditures that are not already accounted for on the May 27, 2020 budget, and expenses that are incurred from March 1, 2020 to December 20th, 2020. Again, I can't overstate this. The municipality is liable for any ineligible expenses throughout this process. These are the categories that we have filed consistent with the application process. Medical expenses, PPE, payroll expenses, public health measures, public economic support, impact on residential refuge and recycle collections, and grant to nonprofits. Let's talk more specifically to each category. From a medical expense standpoint, we did not coordinate any joint activities with UNC Hospital, so there are no monies to report for public hospital, temporary public medical facilities and test sites. From a PPE standpoint, just about 100% of each department participated, and the dollar amount for face mask, gloves, sanitizing products equate to $36,363. From a payroll expense standpoint, this is your public safety. By definition, our fire and police departments qualified. Therefore, we are eligible for $196,692 in funding back into our resources. This is a good thing. The public health measures, $387,737 for distant learning, technology improvements in connection with school closing, broadband, paid sickness, emergency family leave. Specifically, broadband connectivity. We're recommending installing fiber optic cables to our towers. That's at Hare Street, Madison, New Hope in Berkeley, and downtown here on Holly Street. $150,000 has been projected for that expenditure. Because we are concerned about the safety in our facilities, we are recommending $72,000 be spent on temperature reading cameras, terminals, handheld devices that indicate if an individual has a high temperature, be it a child, be it an employee. We will know at a glance from 0 to 30 people what their temperatures are registering. Because we are concerned about safety, touchless water faucets and water fountains to be installed at $60,000. As we prepare for distant learning, laptops, desks, copiers, headsets, and 65-inch TVs are anticipated in our Parks and Rec facilities. Audio, video equipment at $3,200 here to enhance the virtual experience is a priority because this is the future as we know it today. The Family First Coronavirus Relief Act, Emergency Family Medical Leave Act, $66,000. Here, this is what we're forecasting. Right now, we're at $47,000, but we're forecasting up to $66,000. Things may change, but we have to adjust accordingly. So just know that these numbers are certainly accurate to date based on what we have already. Public economic support. We're suggesting or recommending that we spend $100,000 into our small business community. What does that mean to the city of Goldsboro? Well, for those for-profit businesses that have at least one employee, we're recommending a grant from $2,500 to $5,000. Anywhere from 20 to 40 businesses will qualify. This opportunity presents an opportunity for the city of Goldsboro to partner with Wayne Community College. If done successfully the right way, we will position ourselves to inherit or to incorporate an additional $50,000 of services provided by Wayne Community College. That's a win-win for the city. That's a win-win for the community college. So we're excited about the possibilities. We say here parameters and recipients are to be determined, so it's a work in progress. Our hopes are to have this finalized within the next week or two. The impact on refuge and recycle collections. To date, we've had an increased cost in refuge at $35,000 and an increased cost in recycling at $11,000, giving us right at a total of $46,000. This is due to those individuals who are still at home. There's more trash to be picked up, so therefore there are more fees. There are more cycling fees and costs built into these numbers. These are eligible reimbursement items that we will file for with the CRF. Grants to nonprofits. This is probably the area that we hope to make the largest impact in. This is our community. We were recommending 20% of the total dollar amount go into our community. This is your wages, your Salvation Army, your Boys and Girls Club of Wayne County. 3 is One Family Center, a lot of direction, love, and affection. Wayne Uplift Resource Center. I submit to you that I have sat down and spoke with each one of these entities. And the stories that they tell regarding the needs are just mind-blowing. The city manager asked me to have discussions to understand their operations today and the impact of COVID-19. Well, we've done that, and we feel very secure with the recommendations that are before you. Common needs are needs such as food vouchers, clothes vouchers, rent, PPE, staffing, additional operational costs because of COVID-19 restrictions. Transportations to these resources are just not available. Because of the loss of jobs, and some of these jobs are fortunately or unfortunately, are cash paying jobs that are lost in the household. The indirect effect of what has happened has caused an increase in domestic violence. It's caused an increase in sexual assault. After talking with Wayne Uplift today, 90% of the cases that are coming in from females because that significant other is there in the household 24 hours a day. The need presents itself because that victim can't get out. When the victim can't get out to earn an income for whatever reason, loss of job, it creates an environment in the household. So Again, I say, we feel very confident in the decisions that we're recommending to you to review. Here's a summary of the cost as outlined on the application. The total amount, $966,688. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Actually, I have two or three.
Okay.
Reference the payroll expenses. The 196, you use the term, the police and fire department are eligible for 196. Is that based, what is the basis for the term they're eligible? Is it something that was provided to the city to determine the eligibility, or did they come up with their requirements and then you say they're eligible for it?
No, that's an excellent question. And if you look at the frequently asked questions and answers that NC Pro has put out to the state, by definition, because of their
Let me
work.
interrupt. I'm not questioning their need for the money. I'm just trying to determine who established the eligibility, if you will.
Well, North Carolina Pro, their role is administrative. They don't approve anything, but their interpretation of, by definition, of the role of the police officer and the fire department is that the work that they do in every capacity qualifies them for payroll expenses. And being more specific to your question, across the state of North Carolina, if you are a police officer or fired from a public safety standpoint, that salary that was paid into this is the only exception to the rule of what I was discussing there earlier, the budgeted item on prior to March 27th. If the police and fire salaries can go back, we can use that as a line item because they're public safety. That's not an approval of Octavius Murphy. That's not an approval of NC Pro. That's the interpretation that NC Pro has given the state of North Carolina.
I guess what I'm trying to clarify
Well,
in my mind is...
are you gonna pay them extra money?
That's what
Or
I'm
you
trying
gonna
to...
repay our payroll account?
That's what I'm trying to establish.
No. What has happened is because of their eligibility, we can go back. We have paid year-to-date salaries for both police and fire $7 million. When we project that out, it's over $8 million. Actually, that entire $8 million can be considered a payroll expense. But because we have a balanced model here for our presentation, we use 20% of the $967,000 to recoup, if that answers that question.
So, if I may, Mayor, we budgeted for the payrolls of these two departments,
$8 million.
and this 196 is for payroll, not for fire trucks or
That's
equipment or
correct.
whatever. So then, if we have $200,000 thereabouts back to us, that offsets, in my mind, budgeted dollars. Is that correct?
That,
Yes, it can be used in other ways, potentially.
But it's still a payroll use, correct?
Yeah, you can repay
Yeah.
yourself, is basically what you're doing.
Yeah,
Whatever we put in here is definitely going to go towards payroll.
yeah. So I guess what I'm trying to say, it would have a positive effect, assuming we don't have a lot of overtime and other things on our budget process.
Yes.
Okay, if I may continue, the grants to businesses, you talked about doing that in conjunction with the small business office at the college.
yes, sir.
Who's going to review, determine how these grants...
Eligibility?
Yeah,
We're using, based on the recommendation from Wayne Community College, we're going to use an outside source. Now, examples have been done throughout the state, We talked to Durham County. We talked to the city of Fayetteville. We talked to New Hanover County. New Hanover County uses a financial institution, a bank, to identify or vet these different grant opportunities. But the Wayne Community College has actually hired a person to fulfill that role.
And are these businesses, I think you identified 40 business or something like that?
No, so this organization or this person under contract from Wayne County Community College will vet any applications that come in and give us ones he thinks meet the requirements, and then there'll be a separate board, of which Octavius would head from the city. We'll also have some Wayne County Community College people on the board, and they will determine who should get the awards.
Okay, and these businesses in total will be informed of this potential grant process, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Not only these businesses, but the entire community.
Yeah, right,
because
yeah,
this is
that's
not,
The county's doing the same thing.
yeah, the county, well,
I don't know what the county's going to do with their money. I don't know what the county's going to do with their money. They're under the same requirements, though. They could spend it here, or they could spend it other ways.
So you mean to tell me that we're going to allow monies that the city is over to be approved and sent to other entities without us approving it?
Well, you would approve the 100,000 or whatever amount you want to approve, and then a board will review the applications and decide who's most qualified or in need of the $2,500, of which would afford up to 40 businesses. If they decide to go with a $5,000 grant, then it would only be 20 businesses. So your input on how you'd like to see that go down is certainly important.
Absolutely.
But, so Octavius would head it up from the city. I would imagine Scott Satterfield or Aaron Fonseca would be in on it as well. And then we'll get a couple people from the community college who would oversee this as a part of a partnership.
So it's not gonna just be these nonprofits that you showed on the screen today?
No, they're
that'll be
separate.
eligible?
No, great question, because someone else might get that same interpretation. This one section, the 20%, the 200,000 goes to nonprofit organizations.
Go back to the slide that we're talking about. So this is $100,000 worth of COVID funding, right there.
Okay. All right, see, we have grants to nonprofits at 200,000. These are the, okay.
Go to the 100,000 where you were.
This is a separate opportunity here, the small business owner grant, the 100,000.
Well,
Yeah, but I want you to go back, because I'm trying to get clarity pertaining to the 200,000. I know the city manager has addressed that other nonprofits will have the opportunity to get some resources as well. But I just want...
Oh, so if you want to entertain that thought right now, are you good with the small business aspect of it, or do you have comments on that?
Not yet. I just want to,
Okay.
first, let's go back to the wages.
Okay, let's go
Salvation
back.
Army, please.
Right, so this was a recommendation from our Community Relations Director and Octavius Murphy, after talking to these different nonprofits as to how this money could best be spent, roughly 20% of the funding we'll receive. If council has a better idea of how we can adjust accordingly.
Yeah, I'd like to see other nonprofits have the opportunity to get some of these resources too, because there's a lot of great, and I'm not taking anything away from any of these organizations. They do a great job. But I think there's others that should have the opportunity as well. And that's what I like to see.
Do you have some recommendations as to what amount of funding you would want to move from maybe the ones that are getting more funding, like Wages and Salvation Army, or some other organization? Because in the end, that's what we have to do.
Yeah, I mean...
And we don't need to make that decision right now. I mean, I've also forwarded to you on Friday a resolution that would allow us to authorize to do some of the spending or all the spending, whatever you want us to start acting on, but we only have 2.5 months to get this spent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think it would, I think, by next council meeting, we could have something clear, other nonprofits that would, have the opportunity to get some of these resources.
So maybe we could approve the spending on the other issues and hold off on the nonprofits, or however else you want to do it.
I mean, the other thing you could do, Councilman Williams, is you could send the list to Melissa and let her distribute to the rest of the council. And then we could go ahead and be working on it before the next meeting, right?
Well, I'd like to see, I don't think that's my job. I think that, we should give the opportunity to any nonprofit that's in the city that does help the community and have them send in their information to the city.
Well, Councilmember Williams, it's important to know,
And that keeps me neutral. That,
Yeah.
if I name a name, then
I understand.
I'm gonna have to recuse myself
Yeah.
on something.
So
Well,
I guess,
I understand. After reviewing this list and after reviewing the list that was sent to me, there were probably 9 or 10 nonprofits on there. My thought process going into this was, how can we make the largest impact in the community with these funds? If we had an additional $1 million to pour into this community, it would be spent tomorrow without question. So I agree with you wholeheartedly. However, because of when we received this, on September 15th, we have to have our final, all the adjustments have to be made to our plan in order to be spent sometime mid-November. But we're dealing with a deadline of September the 15th.
whose deadline is that?
That's NC Pros.
Okay.
I have a question,
Yes.
or I guess a question comment, and then it's kind of piggybacking off of Councilmember Ham's question initially, but if you said we had 9 to 10 nonprofits that were on that list, me personally, I think it's a greater impact to give money to all of those that were on that list versus who do we think will make a more, if we only had 9 or 10, there's 6 up there? So we've got 3 or 4 nonprofits that get nothing. So I would like to see, even if we can give them something, I mean, I actually agree with Councilman Williams, because there are a nonprofit that I'm thinking of in particular who I know could use it and who's been on the front lines of this pandemic since the very beginning from my lens, and they're not up there. And I don't know if they was a part of the other ones that are not up there either. So I would love to see if there was a way we could contribute to each of the nonprofits that was on the list, or give an opportunity for other nonprofits to submit some type of documentation ASAP.
Now, when you mean list, Octavius, you're talking about nonprofits we've previously supported?
Well,
And again, it's got to be COVID-related work they do, so.
yeah, it's got to be COVID-related.
I'm referring to the list
Yeah.
that you were talking
Yeah.
about.
But you have a list that's got more names than that, if we understood you.
Yes, that is correct. And there could be, the list could be expanded way beyond that to Councilmember Williams. I mean, there's 20, 30, 40 nonprofits here in the city of Goldsboro.
Well, I don't think
This
we
is
can do
just
it all of them.
this is just the staff's recommendation. We can do whatever you want to do.
Well, I think if you did have, you have people that you've done business with in the past, nonprofits, and we already have vetted them, I think that's a quicker transition, being that you are on a time frame. So I think that, if you could look into some nonprofits we've already done business with, they already have a track record for what they do in the community, and if it is COVID-19 related, I think we should just go ahead and take that route.
So my second part, real quick, before we move on with Councilmember Ham's question, and Mr. Murphy, you mentioned that other sister brother counties actually outsource some of the decision making in terms of who gets the funding for. I'm going back to the small business really quick.
Yeah.
So from what I understand, though, we decided not to outsource because, to me, Wayne Community College is not outsourcing, including people from downtown is not outsourcing. To me, that's homegrown. So these people are familiar with these entities. They could be friends, they could be cousins, they could be aunties, they could be frequent visitors, and it doesn't seem like it's giving, small businesses a fair chance without outsourcing it. So if other brother, sister entities are doing that, is that something that we didn't want to consider outsourcing it instead of building a board from people who are right here in the area to make that decision?
Great question. I think we're open to possibilities. That's why we left the comment on the presentation.
Okay.
Nothing has been inked. We are considering We continue to consider other opportunities.
Okay.
But that blueprint is the one that we like looking because of because of the individual's background and he or her not being related to Wayne Community College, City of Goldsboro, Wayne County.
But you're kind of saying two things, because if I heard you right, or if I understood you right, you said you really need this done by September 15th.
That's correct.
Well, this is September 8th today.
That's correct.
But if you start adding all this stuff, how are you going to get it done by September 15th?
Well, we just have to make a decision quickly on how we're going to move forward.
Well, that's why, she had a good option. She says, well, you already have 9 nonprofits in place, maybe can just, try to put them, add them into it. That'd probably be the easiest transition.
And that would take care of this list here.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, so
I guess the other guidance with the 100,000 is if you would prefer us to outsource it, just tell us, and we can outsource
Well, I
the
don't
person
think
who's
you're gonna
making
have
the
it.
decisions.
I might be wrong if I am, y'all tell me. I don't think you're going to have the time to outsource it.
Yeah.
And I don't know why we want to pay to outsource something we got people that can do. But I don't care.
I would,
That's what y'all want to
that
do.
was my thought, is these people know these businesses, and, I
Yeah.
rely on their professionalism to make the decision as to who should receive the funding.
Yeah, that's going to be the challenge, how we're going to keep it honest and make sure that people who really should have the opportunity to get some of those resources get them. I mean,
There's nobody on the list that doesn't need the money.
no, I'm talking about the 100,000 right now.
Yeah, I'm talking about the
Yeah,
100,000.
yeah, because, well, I'm not saying those individuals, I'm just saying whoever's going to be in charge of that. Because like Ms. Matthews stated, it could be friends, family members. We know that happens all the time.
Well, we can put restrictions on that. I mean, Octavius, you can probably talk to, because I know you're deeper into it than I am, or Scott or Aaron, if you're still out there. But there are parameters for receiving the funding. And we can certainly make no family member one of them.
Yeah, I would just briefly say that there would be most likely a scoring rubric that would be tied to keep that not ambiguous. And so you would likely have a committee that would be utilizing the same set of scoring criteria to determine, what, who was most deserving based on the values that are established in the registration. And then you've got a counselor who will moderate that, and you've got somebody who's already filtering that, the outside party who's filtering that before we even get it. So, it just removes a lot of that arbitrary nature of who gets what. It's going to be scored, and that scoring is a transparent process to the public.
What y'all want to do?
I would ask first, is it apportioned correctly? Do you think we should give one more to one area than another? We tried to meet the need as best as possible, so if you're good with that apportionment, we can take your advice for action on certainly the nonprofits, looking at spreading that a little bit more with some others, and then when it comes to the business, we had a good discussion with Wayne County Community College on that. I feel very good about the professionalism and what they're going to do. They're hiring an outside contractor to look at all these evaluations, and so we will set up those parameters for evaluation that'll be known to everybody that's applying.
it's also important to know that because Wayne Community College would be hiring that individual, it would be no cost to the CRF fund. That person would be contracting or under agreement with.
I think that's actually part of their CRF funding that they get, and
Okay.
they're looking to invest with us.
Is everybody okay with the breakdown? The breaking it the way they did?
But this is as is, this is not, so I guess we have to make a decision if we're gonna add the other nonprofits that was on the list.
Well, but you're gonna add to it out of the money that's in that column, right?
Yeah, so, yeah, the 200,000, right?
Yeah, so right there, you're gonna take some money from somebody
To
and
give it to the other.
somebody else,
Okay.
right?
So that's what we're clear on, that's why I just wanted to
I
make
think
sure.
I think so. Is everybody clear on
Any
that?
particular guidance on that? Do you want to give two of the bigger ones, Wages and Salvation Army, bigger organizations, 50,000 as opposed to 25,000? Should we spread it from there more than the other organizations, or?
I think you see who they are and what you think you give them.
Yeah. We'll do some more research on it and let council know.
All right. And so we're good on the amounts. We just need to go back to the small business and get some more names there, is what I'm hearing.
You mean nonprofits?
Nonprofits.
I mean, that's the nonprofits right there. The small businesses that you're gonna give the money away to?
Yes.
I thought we said we were gonna try to do a few more.
That's an application process.
So that's not gonna happen.
There's nobody that's applied yet. We
Okay.
we have to put this out
I
there.
got you, okay. All right, is everybody good?
The question there was just how many we were gonna choose, right? Between 20 and
Right.
30?
40.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if at 100,000, it's $5,000 grant for 20, or if you want to spread it more, 2,500 for 40 businesses.
Okay.
You know, when downtown development, DGDC, did their grant process, I think 10 or 20,000,
Yeah.
they had over 60 applicants just downtown. So we expect to see plenty of applicants, and the county community college would like to engage as many as possible. So that's why we thought 2,500 to 40 businesses, if that's good.
Well, I think it's definitely a need right now, everything that's happening. So I think this grant will help some businesses tremendously. Even if it's $5,000, it will be a big help.
Well, that was the thought process that went in it. The small business owner in Wayne County or in general is struggling. And this, if it's 2,500, if it's 5,000, it will help dramatically.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you're just getting from one week to the next, right now, the quicker we can get this money to that small business owner, the better. Without question, this process should yield itself to those individuals. There are two exceptions that they would disqualify. If they have charge-offs or if they have a pending bankruptcy. That promotes very little for the future going forward. But we don't really have, I mean, as we build these parameters, we really don't have a set of rules that say they disqualify. That's by example used in New Hanover County. They gave 1.3 million to the small business communities at 10,000 a pop. So this is going to help in more ways than one, I think. Other questions?
So if I can get council to approve the resolution, we can spend the funding.
Yeah, is there anyone who wants to make a motion to approve the resolution?
I make a motion that we approve the resolution.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. All right, everybody vote the resolution passes. Hey, Melissa, one thing I haven't been doing, I don't know about Todd's. Can you tell if he's voting or not voting?
No,
Yeah.
if you could ask him.
Councilmember Polak, would you vote in approval?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. That's the only thing we voted on, so I think we're good there. All right, so next we got the consent agenda.
Okay. Finance Director?
She looks like your finance director to me.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Evening.
Tonight, I have an accept or reject initial bid and authorize finance to advertise for upset bids for 619 and 621 Slaughter Street. We have a piece of city-owned property at 619 Slaughter Street. We've received an offer from Miss Edna Burns for $1,750 even. The bid deposit's $175. Zoning is R6. The offer is at least 50% of the tax value. The bid deposit of at least 5% has been received in the form of a personal check. We also have 621 Slaughter Street, which is a city-county jointly owned property. Offer again is Miss Edna Burns. Offer is $1,655 with a bid deposit of $163. It is zoned R6. Tax value is $3,310. The offer is at least 50% of the tax value, and the bid deposit of 5% has been received in the form of a personal check. So tonight I'm asking if you will accept or reject the offer on 619 and 621 Slaughter Street. And if accepted, I have included a resolution for your approval tonight on the consent agenda. to allow finance to advertise for upset bids. So I just need at this point either to accept or reject the two offers.
Is everybody okay? All right, so it'll be on the consent agenda, so we'll, okay.
Okay?
All right, item C, rebuilding a grant project fund.
Yes, sir. So the next item I have is a grant project ordinance for the FEMA Assistance to Firefighters Grant. It's for the source capture exhaust system installation for fire stations 1, 2, 3, and 5. The city applied for the grant in March. We received award in July. The city council approved by resolution on August 17th to accept the grant. And at this point in time, I'm asking you to allow by the creation of a special revenue ordinance so that we can appropriate the expenditures and begin fulfilling the terms of the grant. We are creating a special revenue fund in order to track the expenditures and revenue separately for single audit purposes. The amount of the grant was $202,083 with a 10% match of $18,371.18. And tonight, I'm just asking that the grant project ordinance be adopted.
Any questions? All right. Item D.
Okay, my last item is an operating budget amendment for fiscal year 2021. And as part of the fiscal 2021 budget ordinance, the city includes a provision to allow for unfulfilled purchase orders to be carried over and appropriated in the new fiscal year. So tonight, there are two things in the operating budget amendment. One is what we call the purchase order rollover, which becomes an appropriation of fund balance. And then the other item not related to that is an amendment to transfer funds for the FEMA source capture ventilation system that we just discussed to provide for that $18,371 match. And what we're doing with that portion in the city manager's budget, we are reducing by $15,000. It's basically advertising for the air show since that's been postponed. And then the balance of the match, the $3,371 we're requesting from fund balance. So I have provided, as far as the purchase order rollover, I provided you a breakdown by fund. And out of the total operating funds, we are appropriating $597,000 in fund balance. The general fund makes up $434,000. The utility fund makes up $142,000 approximately. And the downtown municipal service district makes up about $20,000. The rest of the $7 million in purchase orders are related to grant project or capital project funds, and they do not require reappropriation by the council because they are not operating funds. They are actually project funds that have a project life, not an annual life as our operating funds do. I also provided an analysis of fund balance for the general fund, utility fund, and the downtown municipal district fund for your review. Should you have questions about that, I'd be glad to answer them. I provided a detailed list of the purchase orders that are going to be rolled over. If you have any questions on those now or later, please feel free to contact me and we'll be glad to discuss those. And then if you have any questions for me at this point in time, I'll be glad to answer.
Any questions?
A question not related to this subject, but has any action been taken on procuring the procurement person?
Well, I just placed, the accountant has been with us for about 2 weeks now, and I was in the final stages of finishing field work for the FY19 audit, and because of the pressing nature of that, I wanted to make sure I got that done. So my next step would be to work on the procurement officer.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you for asking.
So I got another question. Some of these POs are getting to be pretty old POs now.
Yes, sir.
Why, is there anybody who goes in and looks at them and says, well, we really don't have to have them?
I do look at them very carefully.
What do you know about
Sir?
What do you know about a stoplight? What do you know about if we need a stoplight or not?
A stoplight?
Yeah, I mean, there's just different things in here. I'm just saying, how do we, I mean, this list has a lot of things in it that are getting to be pretty old.
Most of these are project-related. If you have one specific, I mean, some things require manufacture time. So we've had like a bucket truck, it's $144,000. It's ordered. And then one thing, too, to bear in mind, the COVID-19 impacted a lot of things as far as manufacture. So some of this is timing, some of this is related to the manufacturer, some of it is related to COVID-19 delays. But I mean, any particular one, I'd be glad, I mean, I may know about it or at least have the gist of it.
Okay. All right, anybody any more questions?
Yeah, I have a question. It's pertaining to something that we agreed upon before the new council came in. It was the discretionary funds we had set aside, the $20,000. Do you recall that?
I recall a discussion, Councilman, and as far as I know, it got taken out. So as per my notes and things like that, all of those monies, I believe, got removed. Is that not correct, Mr. Manager?
That's my recollection as
Okay.
well.
And why was that?
I believe the council removed those. I mean, I wouldn't have done it myself because that's not my decision to do it. So as far as I recollect in those meetings, and I can go and look at my handwritten notes, I believe that the council removed those.
No, we never removed it. We never had a meeting to remove the
Why don't we go
$20,000
back to the
discretionary
budgeting meetings
funds.
in June on that, to recall?
Well, I didn't hear your question. What was it?
Before new council came in,
Right.
we had a meeting pertaining to each council having $5,000 or so to use. But what we did was, we put $20,000 they took $20,000, put it to the side, and said this money wouldn't be able to use until the new council came in.
Yeah, I don't think that we ever did that.
We did. We
Oh,
voted on it.
You're talking before this budget year, the last budget year?
Yeah, so the money is still,
Rollover of that amount of money or something?
the money is still there.
Well, they can get, I mean, they can check the minutes, and if we did it, we'll do it. If we didn't, we won't.
All right, we'll check on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else on D?
That's it, sir, from my side.
All right, we'll go to E.
Okay, the police, chief?
Thank you, Catherine.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Item E on the consent agenda is the U.S. Department of Justice Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant Formula Program, local solicitation. The Goldsboro Police Department has been notified that federal grant funds are available from the 2020 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistant Grant. This is the same grant that was applied for in 2019. The total amount of the grant is $34,766. As in 2019, the grant requires that the application be filed on behalf of both the Goldsboro Police Department and the Wayne County Sheriff's Office. The Goldsboro Police Department will be eligible to receive $20,859.60, and the Wayne County Sheriff's Office will be eligible to receive $13,906.40. The grant requires the application be submitted to the City Council for review only, no fewer than 30 days prior to the application submission or before the grant will be awarded. The Goldsboro Police Department has proposed to purchase crowd control protective equipment for the officers, and the Wayne County Sheriff's Office has proposed to purchase a vehicle. It is recommended that the attached resolution be adopted supporting the police department applying for this grant.
Any questions? Problems? Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Next, we got item F.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I have item F, which is the approval of the application for the Asset Inventory and Assessment Grant. Asset management is the process of developing, operating, and maintaining our assets. Correctly identifying and classifying assets is critical to the survival of a water and sewer utility, specifically its solvency and risk. An asset is a resource operated by the City of Goldsboro with future economic benefits to our system. The City of Goldsboro submits applications for clean water and drinking water, state revolving funding, and grants biannually. Scoring on the applications for system management have been zero in recent history, having no approved capital improvement plan, no asset management plan, and the affordability of our water and sewer source services. In order to make the city of Goldsboro more competitive during this application awards, create some system integrity, and create some cost savings, public utility staff is working on some of the developing best management practices through asset management. Public Utilities has budgeted monies in fiscal year 2021 for asset management, and we look to leverage opportunities for additional funding by applying for a grant which requires a match. The state right now has a grant up to $150,000, and we could potentially have to pay a match of 2.5% for that grant to be awarded for us. So that, and I do have enough money budgeted to meet that grant match if it's awarded to us. It is recommended that the City Council approve the attached resolution authorizing the mayor to approve the application for asset inventory and assessment grants. Do you have any questions?
Any questions? All right, item G.
Item G is to adopt and approve the Water and Sewer System Capital Improvement Plan. Capital Improvement Plan is a short-range plan, usually 5 to 10 years, that identifies capital projects, equipment purchases, provides planning schedule, and identifies options for the financing plan. Similar to the asset management grant, the City of Goldsboro submits applications on a biannual basis. In a recent history, we've received 0 points for our system management for the capital improvement, the asset management plan, and for the affordability of our water and sewer services. In order to make us more competitive during this application award, an approved plan of at least 5 years is necessary. The utility master plan is forecasted and forecasted capital improvements have not been updated by professional engineering service firms since 2008. Utility fund staff, which includes Public Works, the Engineering Department, and Public Utilities, has created an internal 10-year working plan for your approval. It's recommended that City Council approve the attached resolution authorizing the mayor to approve the water and sewer capital improvement plan.
But is there any money tied to it?
There's no money tied to it. This is just a best management practice that's saying we've identified these things that we're going to be working for moving forward.
At our last meeting, or sometime not too far, didn't we sign an agreement with somebody to come in?
That was the asset management plan for the elevated tanks.
For the elevated tank?
So we have thousands of assets, and that's for them.
Okay, I got you. Okay.
Mayor, you bring up a good point. I'm looking at this plan, and there's obviously things that are projected to be needed, but we aren't funding for any of that at the present time.
Yes.
So I think it behooves us to really concentrate throughout the next 5-year budget periods that we start setting aside or building up our reserves for these expenses and not let it hit us at one time. So I would certainly encourage my colleagues and the department manager and the city manager to keep that in mind.
That was one of the things we identified during the rate study process is we have identified approximately $215 million over the next 10 years of things we need to do.
We always look to grants,
You better be getting some grants.
but we can't depend on grants.
But this is the plan that needs put together estimates on timeline when we would need to replace these things. So it's a starting point for us to
Understand, you understand.
All right, thank you. Item H, I guess is planning.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good.
Item H is Site 1720, Site and Landscape Plans for Precision Tune Auto Care. The subject property is located on the south side of Spence Avenue between North Hillcrest Drive and Cashwell Drive, and the property is zoned general business. The property is currently vacant and is located between 2 existing restaurants. On the west of the site is Burger King, and on the east of the site is Jay's Kitchen. Non-residential developments on parcels that disturb greater than 1 acre shall be approved by City Council. The submitted site plan indicates a 2-story brick veneer commercial building consisting of approximately 7,000 square feet, and the applicant proposes to use the facility as an automobile inspection, repair, and service center. A floor plan has been provided which consists of a waiting room, laptop internet bar, kids zone, offices, parts supply storage area, and restrooms for customers and employees. In addition, 10 garage bays are located at the rear of the facility for automobile inspection, service, and repair. Hours of operation are Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., and Saturday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., with 12 employees. Access to the site will be provided from a 24-foot wide driveway cut off Spence Avenue. Since Spence Avenue is an NCDOT maintained road, a driveway permit will be required and approved in accordance with NCDOT standards. A total of 47 paved parking spaces have been provided. 17 of those spaces will be located in the front of the facility along Spence Avenue, and 27 parking spaces will be located along the western property line. The additional 3 parking spaces will be located adjacent to the principal building in close proximity to the main entrance. The applicant has been informed that auto repair facilities and all outdoor storage areas for vehicles other than customer parking shall be screened from the public right-of-way or public view in accordance with the city's Unified Development Code. The applicant has informed staff that there will be no outside storage of automobiles after business hours. Exterior sidewalks are not shown on the site plan, and according to our Unified Development Code, the sidewalks are required for new developments. Due to NCDOT maintained road and the sidewalk requirements that they have, their standard sidewalk requirement for complete streets, and with the limited right-of-way, the applicant is requesting a modification of the installation and is requesting to pay the fee in lieu in the amount of $2,380. The site plan indicates a proposed Type A 10-foot wide landscape buffer along the western, southern, and eastern property lines, and street trees are proposed along Spence Avenue. Vehicular surface area plantings and buffers and landscape islands are not indicated on the plan, and staff is working with the applicant to ensure the city's landscape ordinance is met. The proposed automobile inspection, repair, and service center's exterior building materials consist of brick veneer walls, exterior installation finishing systems, metal awnings and copings, and aluminum frame metal windows and doors with tinted glazing. Staff is working with the applicant to ensure that the parapet wall located over the 10 garage bays features 3-dimensional cornice treatments and not be of a consistent height for longer than 100 feet. Interconnectivity has been provided on the submitted site plan at the front and rear of the property adjacent to the eastern property line. City water and sewer are available to serve the site, and stormwater calculations, grading, and drainage plans have been submitted, and the applicant will be required to meet city engineering standards before any permits are released. The Planning Commission at their meeting held on August 31st, 2020, recommended approval of the site and landscape plans with the requested modification regarding the sidewalk installation. It is recommended by motion accept the recommendation of the Planning Commission and approve the site and landscape plans with the requested modification.
Any questions? All right, we'll move to item J. Or I, did I?
Oh, I went too far. I apologize. Item I is S620 Habitat for Humanity of Goldsboro, Wayne Incorporation. The applicant has recently acquired 9 existing private parcels located on the south side of West Grantham Street between North Alabama Avenue, US 70 Highway, and the west side of North Georgia Avenue. The applicant intends to recombine and divide portions of the previously subdivided and recorded lots for the purpose of sale and residential development. According to the City of Goldsboro Unified Development Code, the applicant is required to follow the city's subdivision approval process since the number of total lots, or existing lots, will be increased from 9 to 12. The total area is 2.7 acres. The minimum lot size is 6,746 square feet, with the maximum lot size 11,423 square feet. And the property is zoned R6. Currently, all existing lots are vacant, with the exception of Lot 9, which is occupied by an existing single-family dwelling. The applicant intends to demolish existing home on Lot 9 and replace with a new home meeting the requirements of the R6 zoning district. As previously stated, the submitted preliminary plat contains a total of 12 lots proposed for residential development. No new streets are proposed for the subdivision. North Alabama Avenue, Marshall Street, and North Georgia Avenue are existing city streets paved and maintained by the City of Goldsboro. City water and sewer are available to serve these lots, and the proposed subdivision is not located within a special flood hazard area. The Planning Commission at their meeting held on August 31st recommended approval of the preliminary subdivision plat. It is recommended by motion accept the recommendation of the Planning Commission and approve the preliminary subdivision plat.
Any questions, comments? All right. Item J.
Item J is
records and imaging policy for the city of Goldsboro. The city would like to transition to a more paperless digital system to reduce required storage space for original documents, as well as provide easier access to documents. And to ensure these records remain accessible over time, established guidelines are needed. The proposed electronic records and imaging policy reflects guidelines established by the North Carolina Department of Natural and Cultural Resources publication, Guidelines for Managing Trustworthy Digital Public Records. The policy serves as basic documentation of the procedures followed by the department in imaging, indexing, auditing, backing up, and purging electronic records in accordance with the disposition schedule. The policy would also serve to protect those records digitized by the city's in-house imaging system. The form provided in Section 10 of this policy is a request for disposal of original records duplicated by electronic means. It would need to be completed and submitted to the Department of Natural and Cultural Resources before any of the paper copies are destroyed. This policy would be reevaluated at least every 5 years and updated as required. Staff recommends council adopt the attached resolution approving the electronic records and imaging policy.
Any questions? Comment? All right.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So we're going to be following the guidelines of North Carolina Cultural
And natural resources.
Natural Resources, yes. So we'll be following those guidelines.
Yes, sir. This policy was created from their sample policy. So yes, sir.
Okay, so that's pertaining to anything from litigation case records, legal review records, legal opinions, all those things, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you so much. And thank you for, council, for letting me have time to review this stuff before we made a decision.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You done?
Yes, sir.
Any more questions?
I have one question. So now sometimes when we request things, and I'm only saying sometimes because I've only done it a couple times, they're received in like a link. And I've had issues with retrieving that link. It's either been broken or it sent me to some type of spam. And I've discussed it with IT, and there were some things that we try to do to fix the issue. But will this alleviate those type of problems? Would it be easier to assess, get information?
It'll be easier for us to review that information and find it a little bit quicker. It's when we have like a large number of documents that we have to transmit to someone who's requested them by email. I guess one way to alleviate that would be providing the documents, one at a time, or the link just allows you to share more documents at one time. But if you're having trouble accessing that, we can break it up into smaller files to email. Or if they provide a flash drive or something like that, then we can put them on those.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Answer your question?
Good, thank you.
Anybody got anything else?
Closed session for personnel issues.
Now, we need a motion to go into closed session for personnel issues.
Motion to go into closed session for personnel issue.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion? Oh, yes.
I just didn't, Todd should give his response as far as the consent agenda. I didn't hear him, everybody else kind of nodded their affirmation, that was all.
Yes, going into closed session. I just heard it. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, well, in that case, we'll go into closed session.